Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I have a resolution that I've talked about before. I want to emphasize that it's not a bill. Could I ask for order, Mr. President?
Can I order in the chamber?
I want to emphasize, Mr. President, that it is a resolution. It's not a bill. I also want to emphasize at the outset that it only applies to the Senate. It only applies to the United States Senate. And here's what my resolution would do. It would change Senate rules to provide that when we are in a shutdown, that senators cannot be paid, cannot receive their salaries. Their checks would be, think of it this way, Mr. President, locked in a vault. And once the shutdown is over, the senators could pick them up. Now, if I think everybody in the Congress knows what I'm about to say, may be a bit cynical, but it's true. If I were king for a day, I'm not, and I don't aspire to be, and I wanted to avoid shutdowns, I would do two things. I would provide that members of Congress can't be paid during the shutdown, and I would provide that members of Congress can't leave Washington, D.C. during a shutdown. Now, I can't pass the second part of that. So I'm going to try to pass the first part of that. This resolution, again, it's not a bill, is about shared sacrifice. And I'm not doing it to punish anybody. I'm not doing it to try to embarrass anybody. I recognize that there are varying degrees of wealth among United States senators and their ability to go without a paycheck. I know, and like every member of this body, and every member of this body has grown, who has a substantial amount of wealth, has achieved that wealth through their own hard work. And most, if not all of them, started with nothing. And you know what I say? God bless them. More power to them. That's America. So I want to put that up front because I'm sure that some are going to point out that some of our members are wealthier than others. And it's true. I mean, not to single anybody out, but I've seen Senator Rick Scott's house. It's bigger than a Costco, okay? More power to him. He earned that. I've seen Senator Mark Warner's house. It's bigger than a Target. More power to him. He earned that money. He started from nothing. So did Rick. But this bill isn't about that. It's about shared sacrifice and sending a message. We've got about 1 squillion employees at the Department of Homeland Security that aren't being paid. And there is no prospect of them being paid. Before I yield to my colleague, Senator Marino, I want to point this out. I said it yesterday, but I'm going to say it again. The party line among us is that we're that close to reaching a deal, to which I respond, a deal to get government back open, to which I respond respectfully, dream weaver. Okay? I don't believe it. I hope I'm wrong. I know Mr. Holman is now involved. He's good, but he can't work miracles. I do not believe, because of the faction of my friend's parties, my Democratic friend's party that is in control, that my Democratic colleagues can vote for anything that could be interpreted as helping ICE. I just think that's political and policy reality. This is America. They're entitled to their opinion. What I think we should do, as I said yesterday, and Senator Cruz has talked about this eloquently, I want to give him full credit. The Democrats have offered to open every part of DHS except ICE. I would gratefully accept their offer. Let's get them open, immediately. And then the very next day, we should start a budget resolution through reconciliation. We should pass a budget for the rest of ICE, the rest of the DHS that's not open. Now, I would welcome my Democratic friends' involvement in that, but I know they can't vote for it. We could do this through reconciliation as we've passed one big, beautiful bill. We've got 2 more shots under the rules of reconciliation. It would easily be sustained in a bird bath. It would not take 60 votes. It would take 50 votes plus the vice president. That's how we passed the one big, beautiful bill. So before I call on Mr. Marino and return to the subject, I really think we ought to surprise ourselves, Mr. President, and do something intelligent if we really want to get this government back open. We could have it open within a week. The Democrats I think, will find that acceptable, and I believe Republicans will find that acceptable if we would just do it. I would like to yield a few minutes to my good friend, Senator Marino, about my resolution.
My colleague will yield for a question.
Of course.
So, to all the senators here, I'd ask you to think about a couple of concepts that come from the private sector. I remember the 2008 financial crisis as follows. It was a situation where any day you would think we're going to face total and complete bankruptcy. I had mortgaged everything I owned in my life. I'd maxed out my credit cards. I took out loans so big I couldn't even do the math in my head. I'd wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning wondering how I was going to make payroll. My wife would say, "You okay?" I'd say, "Oh, yeah, no, I'm fine." And I think, Mr. President, you've been there. And I had to ask my team to make a lot of sacrifices. We had to cut pay. We had to make a lot of adjustments because it was a matter of life and death. Either the business was going to survive or we were going to collectively perish into the great abyss of bankruptcy. And there's a concept that's important in creating a culture that says, as a leader, you must be willing to live in the shared experience of your team. Now, I will contradict a little bit of what you said. Each of us in this chamber make $175,000 a year. That's not what the average American makes. That is dramatically more than the average American makes. And it's certainly a lot more than what the average TSA worker makes, what the average FEMA worker who's got to go out and help places all over the country. I saw the very sad storms that Hawaii is seeing, and I hope we get help to those people. But it's not going to be me that goes there. It's going to be the hardworking men and women of FEMA that go there, and they make a fraction of what we do. I can't imagine having a job in which for the 3rd time in 6 months, you have to explain to your wife or husband or kids, "Hey, I didn't get a paycheck today." And the kids looking at you going, "Well, what did you do? Like, what did you do to not get a paycheck? Were you insubordinate? Did you not show up for work? Did you yell at your boss?" Nope. I did everything right, other than work for the Department of Homeland Security. Why would you stay in that job? And I think that's the thing that we don't understand is people have breaking points where they just say, "I'm just not going to work here anymore." And this particular agency, more than anything else, has a very simple charter to protect us from dangers from abroad. These are the people that chase transnational criminals. I don't think any of us in this chamber would be willing to go do that. It's tough work, it's brutal work. They put their lives at risk. Not only do I think we should give them their paychecks, we should say thank you. Thank you for being willing to do this job. And I'll end with this. to my colleagues, we have to eat our own dog food. If we don't eat our own dog food, we will get disconnected permanently from the people that we serve. If we're willing to accept a paycheck that is 3-4 times what the average American makes, and we deposit that every month, we say, well, look, I got to pay the bills. I don't care how wealthy you are. If somebody's a multimillionaire or not a multimillionaire, 175 grand a year is a lot of money. Certainly enough to pay the bills. Just ask the people who make 3 times less than that. They figure out how to make the bills. And this isn't about giving up the paycheck or giving up money, which, by the way, I think we should. Like, I don't think we should get paid retroactively. I think we should just say, hey, look, you didn't do your fundamental duty, which is to fund the government. And if you have a policy dispute, then do the hard work. Go into the rooms and make the calls and go out there and persuade your colleagues. But in the meantime, don't punish the workers. Don't punish the workers. I grew up coming to America in the 70s and 80s. I looked at Democrats like Tip O'Neill and JFK. These were Democrats that said, above all else, we are the party of the working man and woman of this country. We are for the people who built this country. The very wealthy, they're just fine. They're just fine. But we focus on the working men and women of this country. And what drove me to run for office is not what I expected ever to do in my life. Believe me, never did. But I do consider it a great honor. Every day, including today, beautiful sunny day, I see the Capitol, I'm like, my God, what would my mom and dad think if they were alive? That their youngest son gets to work in the United States Capitol. It's crazy. It's literally, you know what my mom would say? Only in America. Only in America. But there's 260,000 families that aren't feeling the love right now. The least we could do today is say we join you in that shared sacrifice. We join you so that we can understand what it's like to have to leave here and say, hey, yeah, not good. We're not going to get a paycheck because we didn't do our job. And if we don't do that, what do you think the message it is? You're much more elegant than I am. I think the accent does you 80% of the bidding there. But what do you think that says? What is it? Here's my question. What does a signal of saying, no, 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 we insist on getting paid 3-4 times what the average American makes. We're not willing to sacrifice anything because maybe we're special. Is that the message that's sent? Yield back.
Here, Mr. President, and my good friend Senator Moreno, is the message that it will send if we do not pass this resolution. If it weren't for double standards, we wouldn't have any standards at all. If it weren't for double standards, we wouldn't have any standards at all. Now, the American people see what's going on. As I've said before, not every American reads Aristotle every day. They're too busy earning a living. They're too busy getting up, going to work, obeying the law, trying to do the right thing by their kids. As usual, Senator Moreno makes very salient points. He's aware, as am I, that once again, this is a resolution that just affects the Senate. It doesn't affect the House. Senator Moreno is well aware, as am I, and every member of this body, that this is a bipartisan resolution. To change the Senate rules, I had to go to the Rules Committee. My resolution, our resolution, passed the Rules Committee unanimously. Every single Republican and every single Democrat voted for this resolution. What I hear Senator Moreno saying in a very eloquent way, yes, there are varying degrees of wealth in this chamber. but we all make 170 grand a year. And that's a fortune for most Americans. I'm not saying that senators don't earn that. This bill's not meant to punish anybody. I know some senators who work so hard that 170 grand a year is probably equivalent to about $11 an hour. I mean, they're working all the time. This isn't about that. This is about shared values. This is about sending a message to our colleagues at TSA and elsewhere in DHS that we understand that we're trying to get government back open. But in the meantime, we're going to try in our small way to share your experience. So I would ask my colleagues, please, I don't like to talk too much about doing the right thing because I think everybody in this body wants to do the right thing. We just disagree sometimes over what the right thing is. But honestly, I don't see how any one of my colleagues can disagree with either the spirit or the letter of this resolution. So, Mr. President, as if in legislative session, and notwithstanding Rule 22, I ask unanimous consent the Senate proceed to the consideration of calendar number 296, SRES 526, which Senator Moreno and I have just talked about. And further, that the resolution be agreed to and the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table.
Is there an objection? The objection is heard.
With respect, I want to give my colleague, Senator Schatz, more time. As he objected and left the chamber, is he coming back? Well, wait, just one second. I mean, is he
Quick question.
Is he ill? What should I do, Mr. President? Should I give him more time or?
Well, Mr. President, point of order. Is it appropriate for someone not to be recognized to just say, I object and run out? The senator's not been recognized. The senator had the floor, the senator from Louisiana, who's made a proposal, and then I heard some noise in the background, and that was it. But I never heard a senator being recognized, so it sounds to me that no one has been recognized to object.
What, could we get a ruling, Mr. President? I don't want to be unfair to anybody. My Democratic colleagues, I told them ahead of time
An objection was raised and an objection was heard.
So should we give Senator Schatz more time to come back, or? Should we give him more time to come back and explain? Wait, I see the parliamentarian giving us some guidance.
So listen.
Tony, trust me, I know what I'm doing.
The chair cannot answer that.
Okay. May I inquire why not, sir?
Not opine on why a senator is in the chamber or not in the chamber.
Can you opine on why my colleague objected and then immediately left, and whether he's coming back?
Not an appropriate parliamentary inquiry.
Mr. President, my parliamentary inquiry is a bit different than that. I never heard a senator recognized from the chair by the President of the Senate. President, you had the senator from Louisiana had the floor. The presiding officer said, "Is there objection?" At which time, routinely, someone seeks recognition on the floor.
And the objection was heard.
The senator does not need the floor to.
The senator does not need the floor to object.
So I just want to be sure, Mr. President, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but I see our parliamentarians here and they can give you able advice. Does that mean I can object to anything at any time without being recognized?
That's correct.
I don't even have to get the floor.
Does not need the floor.
The senator does not need the floor to object
So
to
I can
unanimous
walk in
consent.
the middle of a debate without the floor, right back here in front of God and country and say, I object, and it shuts things down? I don't understand that.
If there is a unanimous consent request pending, any senator in the chamber can object,
Including the chair.
including the chair.
Without having the floor.
Correct.
That's correct.
And again, with respect, Mr. President, is your ruling that Senator Schatz, who is my friend, I talked to him before I was coming down, he did not have the floor, but he can still object?
The objection was raised and the objection was heard.
But did he have the floor?
The objection was properly lodged. The objection was heard.
Yes, sir. Not to put too fine a point on it, but did he have the floor? Because
The senator did not need the floor. He raised an objection and the objection was heard
And sustained.
and sustained.
Senator Marino, did you want to say something? I saw you raising your hand.
Mr. President,
The senator from Ohio.
I just wanted to clarify where we are right now, because I think we may have brushed through it. So my question to you, to my colleague from Louisiana, is this doesn't remove money from senators. This just holds the money until the government reopens, much like the employees at DHS, where their paycheck is being held. But once we do our job, because they're doing their job, once we do our job, everybody would then get paid, correct? There's no loss of money. And so that seems to me, would you agree that that's like a bare minimum standard? Because any of us can go to the clerk of the Senate and say, hey, hold my check until this government opens. What your resolution is saying is that all of us should do that, correct?
Senator, I think you're right. And, you know, you started out, your comments were saying, well, where are we? I think we're on Pluto. I mean, I do not understand how the chair has ruled that the senator didn't have recognition, but he could still object. And I don't understand how that is possible. I just don't understand how that is possible. In fact, our whole rule about the majority leader having control of the floor, whoever the majority leader is centered around the proposition that at any time the majority leader can assert his right, it's a custom, not a law, can assert his right to control this floor. And that shuts down my recognition, but he's got to get recognition. He just can't come in here and say, stop talking, I'm the majority leader. And I don't understand how a senator can object. I don't understand how a senator can do anything in this body without achieving recognition. That's like, you know, I'm no expert on the Senate rules like the president is and the parliamentarian is, but, you know, you don't have to be an astrophysicist to understand that's one of our bedrock rules.
My colleague,
Yes, Senator.
I would ask my colleague if you would consider resubmitting your request again as a motion to reconsider.
Well, I will do that, but I don't want to be unfair to my Democratic colleagues. I don't believe in surprising people. Senator Schatz told me, we had a conversation last night, said he was going to object. I respect that. And if he has left the building, I don't want to go behind his back. So I don't want to do that unless you can communicate with him. Is he still here? Mr. President, do we know if Senator Schatz is still here? Because I would like to urge reconsideration, but I don't want to blindside him. Who should I ask that to? Tuck? Tuck says, don't bring me into this. Gary? I mean, I would like to urge reconsideration, but I'm not going to do it in blindside Brian. Can I bring it back later? Could I get a ruling on that? Could I ask that we contact Senator Schatz and tell him I'm thinking about reconsidering, but I don't want to blindside him? Mr. President?
It's not an appropriate parliamentary inquiry.
What if I made a motion? Could I move that we contact Senator Schatz and tell him I'd like to move to reconsider, but I don't want to blindside him?
There is no such motion.
I just made it up. You're telling me I can't do that under the rules? Why not? I don't get it. I mean, I could move to reconsider and blindside him, but I don't want to do that. So why can't I move to reconsider subject to us waiting for Brian to get back so he has a full opportunity to be heard? Can I do that?
There's no such motion.
Sure there is. I just made it. Are you saying that the motion's out of order? Look, this is a serious matter now.
Yes, it would take unanimous consent.
This is a serious matter. Now, we've established that this resolution doesn't affect the House. It just says to the senators, while we're in a shutdown, no senator is going to be paid. You didn't lose your money. You pick it up after it's over, after the shutdown's lifted. We've established the fact, Mr. President, that this went through the Rules Committee unanimously. Did I mention it went through unanimously? That every single Democrat and every single Republican said, yes, Kennedy, let's do this. Mr. President, we've established that even though there are varying degrees of wealth among members of the Senate, and I say that's great, every single senator makes at least $170,000 here. They're not going to lose a penny. Not one single solitary penny. Once the shutdown is over, they get their money. We've established that. We've established that there are 260,000, not 2,600, not 26,000, 260,000 of our colleagues working in the Department of Health and hospitals that are not being paid. And a lot of these people do not have immense wealth. But they're not being paid because of our conduct. And I think we've established that this is a chance to show in a little bitty way, a minor way, a baby step, that we're going to share their sacrifice. And there's been an objection. I heard that ruling from the chair. But for the life of me, I don't know how you can object without seeking recognition, without having recognition. I've never heard that one. Okay? We're getting into the foothills of la la land here as far as I'm concerned. Now, I just made a motion. I want to bring this bill to be reconsidered. And all I'm asking, I don't want to blindside my friend Senator Schatz. I don't play that way. I want to give him full opportunity. All I'm asking is that somebody call Senator Schatz and let him know that I'm going to move to reconsider, and I don't want to do it behind his back. That's all I'm asking. So I'll make that motion. Is there an objection? Well, there you go, my good friend. This senator didn't have recognition either. How is that possible? All right, I'm coming back, Mr. President. And I'm coming back, and I'm coming back, and I'm coming back. Did I mention I'll be back? And if a member of this body disagrees with what I'm doing, then by God, they ought to come down here and stand up in front of the United States Senate and stand up in front of the American people and stand up in front of God and stand up in front of country and stand up in front of all these people, these good people that aren't being paid, and say, here's why. Maybe we need to change the Senate rules, Mr. President. I appreciate your patience. And I'd like to ask, Mr. President, this probably is an improper motion too. I got to delve a little bit more in this improper motion stuff. I want to see the rule that says I can't do what I just tried to do. And I want to see it bigger than Dallas. I don't want to see that it's implied or it's a penumbra. And I want to see the rule that says somebody can come on this body into this body without recognition and be heard. Because I don't believe it. And anybody who believes that, no disrespect, shouldn't be driving. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Just a parliamentary inquiry. Again, this is just somebody who's not been here a long time. I just want a clarification, parliamentary inquiry. In order to speak before the United States Senate, my understanding is that a senator has to yield the floor or complete his speech. Another senator, in order to speak, has to seek recognition from the chair in order to speak. Is that correct or not?
To gain recognition to the floor or hold the floor, that senator needs to be recognized by the chair in his or her own right.
The senator does not lose the floor when he or she asks unanimous consent.
The senator who has the floor does not lose the floor when he or she asks unanimous consent.
And any senator in the chamber, including the chair, may object to unanimous consent.
Any senator in the chair, any senator in the chamber, including the senator in the chair, can object despite the fact they don't have control of the floor, and that the senator speaking at the podium who has been recognized continues to control the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Well, just, Mr. President, do I rest?
The senator from Wisconsin was first.
I note the absence of a quorum.
That the quorum is suspended.
There's a motion to suspend the quorum call. No, there's a motion. Is there objection?
Object.
The clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Alston Brooks.